Will Cuylle leads the Rangers to a 4-3 win over the Vancouver Canucks. We discuss why Cuylle will one day be the longest tenured member of the New York Rangers.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1186 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers coming off of a solid 4-3 road victory against the Vancouver Canucks. One of those games that, watching this Ranger team over the last handful of seasons here, you just feel really, really good about their chances of winning the game. It's back and forth. It's a little bit of a seesaw game. And of course, the Canucks are missing some key players. So that obviously worked in the Rangers' favor as well. But this is just the kind of game that watching this team play hockey over the last, basically 4 seasons now, if we count this one, you just expect they're eventually going to find a way to prevail. And indeed, they did exactly that. Chris Kreider with the game-winning goal about midway through the third period there. But I want to kick off today's episode by talking about one of the most improved players for my money in the entire NHL. And that's not to say that he was bad last season as a rookie, but I'm of course talking about Will Cuylle, strong rookie season, and he has grown by leaps and bounds here in year 2. I sent out a tweet the other day that basically said that I could see Will Cuylle one day being the longest tenured member of the New York Rangers, possibly second longest after Alexis Lafreniere. Lafreniere got here a little bit before Will Cuylle did. But regardless, the point stands that Will Cuylle, I think, in a perfect world, is going to be a New York Ranger for a very, very long time. And when I talk about him being the longest tenured Ranger, look, that's not going to happen anytime soon. We don't want it to happen anytime soon. There's a lot of players on this team that have been here for a while, and they're still tremendous players and tremendous assets to the New York Rangers. So we don't want that to happen in the foreseeable future. But one day, somewhere down the line, we're talking 8, maybe even 10 years into the future, you might get to a point where Will Cuylle is indeed the longest tenured member of this team. And one of the reasons why I think that this could happen is because in a lot of ways, he reminds me of the current longest tenured New York Ranger, and that would be Chris Kreider. And I'm not even talking so much about their style of play. I mean, there's definitely similarities there as well. I feel like with Cuylle, similar to Kreider, I could see him just being the guy that's the constant of New York Ranger hockey, the guy that ends up being here through a couple of different eras of New York Ranger hockey. When you look at Chris Kreider, he debuts as a rookie in the playoffs. I mean, that was just an unbelievable way to make your NHL debut in the first place. But he does that, and he's part of this early 2010s era of Ranger hockey where, AV was the coach, and they were making some deep runs in the playoffs, obviously made it to the Stanley Cup final in 2014. So a lot of early success in Kreider's career. There's been early success in Will Cuylle's career for the Rangers as well. Obviously, he's still just getting started. He's only in year 2, but some similarities there. And then there's a little bit of a rebuild that Kreider sticks with the Rangers through, and now comes out of it on the other side, and the Rangers, once again, a bona fide Stanley Cup contender. I could see things hopefully going the same way for Will Cuylle, where he, again, is basically just the constant of New York Ranger hockey. Somebody that I think at one point will eventually wear a letter for this Ranger franchise. Don't know if he'll be the captain. I feel like when you look at the younger players on this team and the candidates to be the next captain after Jacob Trouba, I think Alexis Lafreniere maybe seems like the most likely candidate. If they move on from Trouba next year and they need a new captain in the interim, maybe it ends up being somebody like Trocheck. We'll see. I think probably Lafreniere is the most likely candidate, but I could see Will Cuylle eventually becoming one of the elder statesmen the way that Chris Kreider has, and eventually, if nothing else, at least being an alternate captain. It's so hard to predict things like this, and knowing what this Ranger team is going to look like 5 years from now, 7 years from now, 10 years from now. But when you look at Cuylle, and again, this is another similarity that he has with Chris Kreider, he is a homegrown player, a high draft pick. Kreider was the first round. Will Cuylle was the second round. Just a rock-solid all-around game, though. And like Kreider, I'm not sure that Will Cuylle will ever be the best player on the New York Rangers, but he's going to be a serious franchise pillar for this team. He'll be somebody that's one of the best 3 or 4 players on the team throughout, the majority of his career. And he's not there yet. The reason he's not there yet is the Rangers have a lot of, outstanding players on their team, but he will get there eventually. I really do believe that. He's got a similar build as Chris Kreider. They're both 6'3". Cuylle goes 211. Kreider goes 230. And like Kreider, I feel like Will Cuylle is somebody whose game can age very well. The size is there. There's some physicality there as well. Even more physicality for Cuylle than for Kreider. Even the speed. I don't think Cuylle is quite at Kreider's level in terms of just, flat out speed. But he's not slow either. He showed us some impressive bursts on the goal that he scored in this game, just kind of snuck behind everybody. Cuylle is somebody that already has been and will continue to be a menace in front of the net, the same way that Chris Kreider has been and continues to be. And, if you want kind of a more recent example as far as the similarities go, Cuylle recently has dabbled in some penalty killing. Kreider didn't really kill penalties early in his career. That's something that he added later. As the years went by. I think David Quinn might have been the first one to put Kreider on the PK along with Mika Zibanejad, but Cuyle's already getting some experience there. And I feel like this is the big one to me. Like Chris Kreider, Will Cuylle is somebody where you're going to see his role just very gradually expand as the seasons progress here. Kreider, again, he gets called up and gets kind of thrown into the fire there and then spent some time in the AHL, eventually makes it back to the Rangers and obviously a mainstay of New York Ranger hockey. But with Cuylle, he's mostly settled in nicely on that third line, but there was a time earlier this season where the Rangers shuffled the line combinations a little bit. And one of the more notable things that they did was they bumped Cuylle up into the top 6. He was on the second line. Didn't last for very long, maybe like 2 or 3 games tops. And frankly, I wasn't a big fan of those line changes anyway, but them moving Cuylle into a top 6 role, that was the least of my issues with it. And if you think that if you think that little cameo there is going to be the only time that Will Cuylle finds himself in a top 6 role in the New York Rangers, I think you've got another guess coming. I think that that's something that they probably see him as being in the future, a bona fide top 6er. Right now, there's no real reason to force it. I see every now and then, Cuylle needs a bigger role and more ice time for sure, but he's got to be in the top 6. And he's got to be in the power play, all this stuff. I think right now there's no real reason to shoehorn him into the top 6. I mean, the one thing you could do, and I know some people are going to say, throw Kreider down in the bottom 6 or move Mika, all this stuff, but realistically, they're not going to do that. You could, I guess, put Riley Smith on the third line and put Will Cuylle on the top line if you really wanted to give that a shot. I mean, on one hand, everybody else has had that opportunity to play with Mika and Kreider over the last handful of seasons here, so it's probably only fair that Cuylle eventually gets his opportunity. But right now, I'm not going to force it. That third line has been awesome for the Rangers. Johnny Brodzinski has obviously subbed in for Filip Chytil in these last couple of games here, and Brodzinski played well in this game, and that's great too. Right now, I'm not going to mess with that line. Let Will Cuylle continue to progress very naturally, and he'll very organically continue his ascent up this Ranger lineup. That will happen as the years go by here, and maybe even later this season. You never know what the future holds for sure. But Will Cuylle, man, somebody that looks like a bona fide top 6 forward, big time player for this Ranger team going forward. And keep in mind, this is somebody that's got 14 points in 17 games. I believe that's now the total for Will Cuylle. He has done that while getting basically 0 time on the power play. Now, with Filip Chytil being out of the lineup, he has been inserted on the second power play unit, and that unit actually looked pretty good in this game. But for the most part, all those points have come in spite of the fact that he has not played on the power play really at all. I don't have the stats in front of me right now. I don't think any of his points, though, have come while the Rangers have been on the man advantage this season. But he scored a big goal in this game, gave the Rangers their first lead at 2-1, that out-of-nowhere breakaway that I alluded to a second ago. And he set this whole thing up with a hit in the neutral zone that separated the Canucks from the puck. The Canucks eventually got it back. They got the puck deep. A nice play by K'Andre Miller here. Miller had the puck in the corner. He's got a guy bearing down on him. Miller absorbs a hit, but moves the puck around behind the net to Johnny Brodzinski on the other side. Brodzinski short pass back to Adam Fox. Fox then with a pass through the neutral zone. And Kakko with just a brilliant redirection to Will Cuylle. Cuylle stuck behind everybody, goes in on the breakaway, and converts from the doorstep. So that was awesome to see. I love these goals where all 5 skaters on the ice very, very clearly contribute to the play, as they did here. And there was a funny quote, I got to mention this, from Kaapo Kakko after the game. He mentioned that that was basically an accident. He didn't purposely redirect that pass to Will Cuylle. He was trying to, get his stick on it, which he did, but it happened to just go right ahead to Will Cuylle. And honestly, with all the not so good puck luck that Kaapo Kakko has had over the years, I think he's owed a bounce like this. So that was cool that that he got that. And obviously a great job by Will Cuylle converting from the doorstep, now up to 5 goals in his last 10 games. I saw some people comparing Will Cuylle to Brady Tkachuk on social media. We're not there yet. We got to pump the brakes a little bit. Brady Tkachuk is obviously, a very well-established player in this league. I would say somebody that's probably in the top 10 overall, and obviously somebody that plays with a mean streak and has tremendous offensive skill on top of that. So just one of the bona fide superstars in this league. We're not there yet as far as the true blue comparisons between Cuylle and Brady Tkachuk. But when you look at the style of hockey that they play, yeah, there are certainly some similarities. And if Will Cuylle can get to that level or anywhere near Brady Tkachuk, then we're going to be feeling really good about that. There were a lot of Ranger fans in the offseason, clamoring for this team to make a trade for Brady Tkachuk, just give the Senators anything they want and bring over Brady Tkachuk. I don't think the Sens were going to look to trade Tkachuk anyway. But even if they did, it would have cost an arm and a leg by the Rangers. Tkachuk has a big cap hit. And now you've got Will Cuylle here, who is developing very nicely, has some similarities, and obviously is still on his ELC. So we got a good one in Will Cuylle, and just can't wait to see how he progresses over, I was going to say over the years, but honestly, this guy is getting better on a game-by-game basis. I can't wait to see how Will Cuylle progresses in the next week, in the next game. It's going to be a lot of fun to just see him come along, as time progresses here. So very much looking forward to that. And Cuylle also had the primary assist on the goal that was scored by Kaapo Kakko. Just made a pass in front. It deflected off of a skate, but it went right to Kaapo Kakko, and Kakko was able to bury it. So another big-time game for Will Cuylle, another big-time game for this third line. They're out there for 2 goals. They don't give up any goals against, because why would they? They haven't done it all season. Even with Brodzinski in for Filipino, that line continues to just be an absolute shutdown line for this New York Ranger team. And one more thing that I want to mention here before we shift our attention to something else. It is time for this third line, whether it's Brodzinski or Chytil centering. And we got some good news on Filipino. Apparently was not a concussion. But whether it's Brodzinski or Filipino centering, it is time for this New York Ranger third line to start every single game and start every single period. There was a stat on social media last night that this was now the 4th time this season that the Rangers have given up a goal in the opening minute of the game. So that's obviously a problem at this point. They've had shaky starts to games, shaky starts to period. That's been kind of an Achilles heel for this team. Well, I know a line that, again, has not been on the ice for a single goal against all season. So I would like to see that line start games, test that stat. Hopefully they can at least not be out there for a goal against at the start of the game, because you don't want to keep putting yourself behind the 8 ball the way that the Rangers have been doing in these games. It's nice that they've come back in a lot of these instances, but we got to stop giving up goals in the first minute. That's just not championship hockey, and I think it's time for this third line to be out there at the start of the games. I would prefer the third line along with Jones and Schneider, just to reward them and how well they've played. But I'm a realist here. I know they're not going to reinvent the wheel with this stuff. You're probably going to get Lindgren and Trouba at the start of a game. Fine. You know what? But at least give me that third line out there the start of these games for the New York Rangers. So, yeah, Will Cuylle's awesome, and the third line is awesome, and he's just having an absolutely stellar second season here. That's the bottom line. But in just a second, I mentioned Lindgren and Trouba just a minute ago there. We're going to talk a little bit about their struggles. They were on the ice for all 3 goals against in this game. We will get to that and some other stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by our very good friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly. When you play $5, you don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is also brought to you by Gametime. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you do not have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. And right now, Gametime is having an exclusive zone deal for the NHL Winter Classic event at Wrigley Field. Go to the Gametime app to purchase tickets and get 10% off bleacher seating and 25% off on home plate area seats. You've got Gametime Picks. Creation makes it easier to save money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc., all in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat views, get a panoramic view of your seat from the app before you buy. That's an awesome feature, by the way. Once again, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Huge shout out to the everydayers as always. In our next episode, going to be doing a special crossover edition with Jess Belmosto of Locked On Calgary Flames. Obviously, next on the docket for the Rangers on this road trip is the Calgary Flames, who are off to a pretty hot start this season. One of the more surprising teams around the NHL. But for right now, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this pairing, Ryan Lindgren and Jacob Trouba. The Rangers gave up 3 goals in this game. And, you know, the worst part is not just the fact that this pairing was on the ice for all 3 goals. I mean, they're not the only 2 players out there. And, you know, Igor's got to make saves and they need support from forwards and whatnot. But it's just the fact that when I say that, can anyone, even if you're a big Ryan Lindgren fan, as I am, you know, he scuffled this year, but I'm still a Lindgren fan. Even if you're a big Jacob Trouba fan, he's got his fans out there for sure. Can you look me in the eye straight up right now and tell me that you're surprised when you hear that Ryan Lindgren and Jacob Trouba were on the ice for all 3 goals that the Rangers surrendered in this game? I just don't see how that can be even a slight surprise to anybody at this point. And when you break down these goals, I mean, it's really not pretty. The first goal that was scored, obviously, again, 30 seconds into the game or whatever it was, obviously less than a minute. You've got Hughes making some moves. He gets to the front of the net and he scores on a backhand. This was all set up by a puck in the corner on the opposite side of the ice. You had Lindgren, you had Smith, you had Mika Zibanejad all on the boards. None of them can win this puck. The Canucks come away with it. 50-50 puck at best, maybe even like 60-40 in favor of the Rangers because they had 3 players in there. You know, you'd think they would eventually win that board battle. But no, the puck goes across the ice, cross-ice pass to Quinn Hughes. Hughes is on the left side. Trouba comes over to obviously defend. And Quinn Hughes makes one move, goes right around Trouba. Trouba goes down to the ice. He just basically slides out of the picture and takes himself out of the play. The front of the net could not be more wide open, and Hughes buries a backhander from the doorstep. Jacob Trouba on this play, it looked honestly like they took somebody out of the stands and just put him on the ice and said, try to defend this. I mean, it was honestly that bad. Not a banner moment for anybody that was on the ice here, though. And again, this slow start trend that we've seen from the Rangers is really becoming a continuous problem. Again, that stat they've given up now, 4 goals in the first minute of a game. No other team in the NHL has given up more than 2. And keep in mind, this is a Stanley Cup contender that we're talking about. This isn't some young rebuilding team that, you know, gets has some bad habits, one of which is, you know, a slow start to games. No, this is a team that by now should know better than this and should execute better by this. And again, like I was saying earlier, I think the remedy for this is you put the Kako line, the third line, onto the ice to start games. At least if you do that, there would seem to be a very small chance of this happening, you know, giving up a goal in the first minute. The second goal that the Canucks scored, this tied the game at 2-2. This one, Riley Smith didn't play it so well. The puck was going around the boards in the offensive zone, and Smith went over. He pinched really hard to try to knock the puck down. I can see obviously what he was trying to do, what to settle the puck, not let it, you know, leave the zone, try to keep the offensive zone possession going for the Rangers, but he missed it. It went by him, and now the Canucks are off to the races. It's a 3-on-2. Pettersson up the center of the ice, passes to his right, goes right past Ryan Lindgren over to Sherwood, and he scores on the rush. And then the third goal, again, the Canucks tying the game at 3-3, and another goal scored on the rush. Trouba and Lindgren again, and Trouba's skating toward the net with his back to the play, and Igor might have been screened on this play, and the goal is scored, and My big takeaway as far as Lindgren and Trouba, these guys can't defend the rush. I mean, if there's a situation where you've got whoever the Rangers are playing, whoever the opponent might be, you've got them on a rush and you see Trouba and Lindgren back skating, you kind of know that you're in some trouble. This is either going to result in a goal, it's going to result in an awesome save, or if we're lucky, it'll result in the opposition taking a shot that goes wide, or maybe not even getting a shot away in the first place. Maybe like there's a missed pass or something. But I can't be alone when I'm holding my breath every single time I see Lindgren and Trouba on the ice and there's a rush coming toward them. It just doesn't seem to end very well for the Rangers right now. What do you do about this? What's the solution? I mean, the most simple thing I can think of is you just keep your fingers crossed and you hope that Jacob Trouba and Ryan Lindgren, if they're going to continue to be partners, that they eventually figure out and just play a little bit better than they currently are. Lindgren just got the fishbowl off of his helmet and obviously missed some time to start the season. Maybe he's still getting his legs under him a little bit. Fingers crossed that is indeed the case. But what I would like to see as far as the defense pairings are concerned, leave Miller and Fox together. I would like to see the Rangers go back to Braden Schneider on the left side, playing with Jacob Trouba on the right side, and then you go with Ryan Lindgren on the left side for the third pairing, and you have him out there with Zach Jones on the right side. Now, as soon as I say this, there's probably going to be a lot of you that are going to be quick to point out the fact that this alignment would result in two different Ranger defensemen playing on their unnatural side. You would have Braden Schneider moving over to the left side. You would have Zach Jones moving over to the right side. And why would you do that? Like if you had three lefty defensemen, three righty defensemen, there's no reason to do that to yourself and have two guys playing on their unnatural side. And that's a fair point. But I'm results oriented, man. At a certain point, I don't care about this. I don't care who's naturally on the left side, who's naturally on the right side. It would be strange to line up this way. I will certainly admit that. And Peter Laviolette and the Ranger coaching staff, they're not alone in the fact that they probably don't want to line up this way. But again, I think a lot of other teams around the NHL would probably do the same thing. They would look to avoid a situation like that if they could. But that's what was working. We saw Jacob Trouba, the best hockey that he played this season was when he was out there with Braden Schneider. Braden Schneider was playing on the left side with Trouba. Now, at the time, it made a little bit more sense because Mancini was in the lineup rather than Jones. So Mancini could play his natural right side along with Ryan Lindgren on that third pairing there. And it made more sense when that was the case. So I acknowledge it would be very odd to line up this way with two different defensemen playing their unnatural side. But I don't really care. I want to see the defense pairings that seem to work the best. And one other drawback for doing that would be that it would split up Braden Schneider and Zach Jones, and I think that pairing has been awesome for the Rangers. I think, honestly, that's been the most consistent pairing that we've seen out of the Ranger blue liners so far this season. They've been great. But the thing is, man, they're not getting more ice time anyway. I keep waiting for the two of them to get rewarded with a little bit more ice time, and it just never happens. When you look at the time in the ice for the six Ranger defensemen in this game, there's a huge fall off from the top four to Schneider and Jones. So it would be unfortunate to break them up, but they're not getting more ice time anyway. So what does it even matter? And again, I realize it's an unconventional solution on my part to have two defensemen playing their unnatural side, but that's what was working early in the season. Lindgren being on the third pairing. He's with Mancini at the time. It would be Jones now. And Jacob Trouba playing with Braden Schneider. Schneider can do anything, man. Schneider's a Swiss Army knife. You can play him on either side of the ice. You can play him with any defenseman in the NHL. He'll figure out a way to make it work and play steady, consistent hockey. So that's my solution. Do I think the Rangers are going to do it? No. Do I even think everybody's going to agree with me? The majority of people listening to this are going to agree with me? Probably not, but to me, that's the thing that's been working the best for the Rangers. Those are the pairings that make the most sense right now, despite the fact that you would have, two defensemen playing on their unnatural side. But let me know what you think. I'd be curious to hear what everybody's thoughts are on that. Going to keep everything rolling in just a second. We're going to shift our attention to Mika Zibanejad, who seems to be slowly but surely getting out of his rut. We'll talk about his night and what the Rangers need from him going forward. We will do that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Wanted to close out today's episode by talking a little bit about Mika Zibanejad. We've been tough on Mika. A lot of Ranger fans have been. Certainly I have been. I did not get off to what I would call an inspiring start this season, but it does seem like he's showing some signs of life recently, starting to get back on the score sheet and starting to do so at even strength. So these are all encouraging things. Just looks like he's competing a little bit harder and just has his legs a little bit more than he did at the start of the season. Seems more active, seems more engaged in the play. I still don't know that he's been at his absolute best. I kind of hope that he has not been, because I think that Mika Zibanejad at his best is obviously a big-time difference maker for this team. But my hope a couple of games ago was that the goal that Mika scored against the Sharks, the game that the Rangers won 3-2, that goal would get him going a little bit. And there were a couple of people, I mentioned that in the episode, and I'm sure there were a couple of people rolling their eyes, and that's fine, because that wasn't exactly a dynamic highlight reel goal. Mika basically was on the doorstep, and the rebound went right to him, and he put the puck into the net. We've got people watching this, listening to this, that have played hockey, that are currently playing hockey, that could probably score a goal on this play that Mika Zibanejad scored here. But the bottom line, it does get that scoring feel back to you as a player. And I think that for Mika Zibanejad, and don't take my word for it, just watch the look on Mika Zibanejad's face when he scores that goal against the Sharks. It felt like it was a huge relief. The piano basically fell off of his back, and just very, very happy to be scoring a goal there. And it was an easy goal at the end of that play, but Mika still had a good shift there. There was some good puck movement by the Rangers. Obviously, he had a hand in that. And I think that the hope for a lot of us is that that's kind of what causes the dam to break a little bit and gets the ball rolling in Mika Zibanejad's favor. And then, not a whole lot for Mika Zibanejad in the game before this one, but in this game here against the Canucks, he ends up with a goal and an assist. And I would argue that the goal that Mika scored and the goal that he had the assist, those were the two biggest goals of the game for the Rangers. The first goal came in the first period, right after the Rangers surrendered a goal to the Canucks. So obviously it was very nice to see the Rangers not get flustered and respond right away. It was 1-1, less than 3 minutes into this game. And Mika Zibanejad set this up by winning a faceoff, which is something he's been very good at this season. It's still early, but if Mika Zibanejad keeps winning faceoffs at the clip that he's currently at, it will be the best mark of his career. He went 14-8 on the dot in this game. That's an important note as well. And this is a big faceoff win. You got it back to Adam Fox. Fox over to Miller. Miller takes the shot. Mika had worked his way in front of the net. He's looking for the deflection here, and he gets it, and he sends it home. And like I said, a very important response by Mika Zibanejad and the Rangers as a whole after giving up, that very early goal to the Canucks. And then 3-3 going into the third period, and Mika ends up with the secondary assist on the game-winning goal by Chris Kreider. On one hand, yes, it was only the secondary assist. On the other hand, this goal does not get scored without an outstanding play by Mika Zibanejad in the neutral zone. You've got Jacob Trouba. He's got the puck. He chips it ahead to Mika. Mika couldn't quite reach this puck. He got his stick on it, but couldn't really corral it. And the Canucks take it away. And it's Pettersson. He's circling in the neutral zone to head back toward the Ranger zone. While this is happening, Mika's all over him. He pursues him very aggressively here. He's fighting for the puck. He's able to lift Pettersson's stick and knock the puck away. Kreider then comes and picks it up at the Canucks blue line, passes to Mika. Mika then is able to pass in front to Smith. Smith is in the high slot. He's got his back to the net. He passes over to Kreider, who's moving toward the net, and Kreider scores from the doorstep to make it 4-3. So awesome stuff all around, but this goal does not happen without some just dogged determination by Mika Zibanejad, fighting like hell for that puck in the neutral zone and making sure that he was able to take it away there. So great stuff all around from Mika Zibanejad. And something else that I'll say about Mika, it's something that I mentioned in a recent episode, but I think that this road trip is happening at the perfect time for him. If you go back to the second most recent home game that the Rangers played, that was a 6-3 loss against the Jets. That was, frankly, I think one of the worst games that I've ever seen Mika Zibanejad play. He had 3 miscues in that game that all led directly to Jets goals. And there was a one-timer attempt late in that game where Mika tried to, tee up and let one fly. Rangers were on the power play, and he shanked it. And there were some boos from the Garden crowd. It wasn't like overwhelming. It's not like everybody in the building was doing it, and it fizzled out pretty quickly as well. But they let him hear it, at least for a couple of seconds there. I think, the frustration for his early season play kind of boiled over there at that moment. Then you fast forward to the next game, the last home game that the Rangers played before this current 4-game road trip. That was against the Sharks. And of course, he scored that tap-in goal there to get things going. I think that this road trip came at a perfect time because at least the Rangers won that game against the Sharks. At least Mika Zibanejad had a hand in that win. He scored the first goal of the game, I believe it was, for the Rangers. And now you go away for a 4-game road trip. And I think when you're in a slump and you're pressing a little bit, as Mika Zibanejad was, there's even more of a tendency to do that when you're at home because, man, I want to get the crowd on their feet. I want to electrify this place. I want to remind everybody that, I'm still the same Mika Zibanejad that I've always been. When you get on the road, I mean, just go play hockey. It's you against the world. And I think when you're scuffling a little bit, it's almost better if you're on the road because you don't, sense the tension of the fans in the building. You're there to rain on somebody else's parade, namely the fans of, whatever team that you're playing. So I feel like this road trip is really coming at a good point for Mika. Probably the Rangers even as a whole. The Rangers have been very, very good on the road this season. And hey, so far so good. 2-0 on the road trip. Hopefully they can make it 3-0 when they play Calgary in the next one. One other point that I'll make about Mika Zibanejad here before we call it. He led all Ranger forwards in this game in time on the ice at 21:31. No other Ranger forward had even 20 minutes. So it's not just me noticing Mika Zibanejad stepping it up a little bit very clearly. Peter Laviolette saw it as well. And that's always boosted by the fact that, Mika's time on the ice is going to go up due to him being such an important part of the power play and the penalty kill. And I get that. But bottom line, you're not going to lead this Ranger team in time on the ice among forwards if you're not playing well. He's not going to just keep throwing you out there. We saw Mika lose some playing time earlier in the season. It seems like these last couple of games starting to get it back at least a little bit. So that's obviously nice to see. And I figure we can call it there. One more thing that I want to mention, 2 more actually. Filip Chytil does not have a concussion. He saw a specialist who said he does not. So that's obviously awesome news. He has rejoined the New York Rangers. And hopefully, he can get back into the lineup, assuming that he's ready to go and assuming that doctors give him the thumbs up. And we'll obviously take that day by day. One other thing I want to mention here, though, there was a statement put out by the Vancouver Canucks before the game about former New York Ranger JT Miller. It was on Twitter. I'm going to read it from my phone here for you guys. JT Miller will be taking an indefinite leave of absence for personal reasons. And this is what it said on Twitter. Vancouver Canucks general manager Patrick Alvin announced today that forward JT Miller will be taking an indefinite leave of absence from the team for personal reasons. Right now, our sole focus is making sure this is Alvin talking this part. Right now, our sole focus is making sure that JT knows the entire organization is here to support him. Out of respect to JT, we will have no further comment at this time. And that's obviously a vague statement, but it's designed that way. It's designed to respect JT Miller's privacy as much as it is even humanly possible for a professional athlete in 2024 to have any semblance of privacy. So that's obviously a good thing. I don't know what's happening with Miller. I don't think any of us does. I don't think it's really necessarily our business. But I will just say, JT Miller, somebody that was obviously part of the Rangers, part of a successful era of Ranger hockey, went to Tampa Bay, went to Vancouver. All the best to him, obviously. Whatever's going on, hopefully, he can get through it okay and get back to playing hockey whenever everybody determines that it's ready. But yeah, obviously sad to hear that. And again, just hope that, everything's all right when it comes to JT Miller, going forward here with the Vancouver Canucks. So all the best to JT Miller for sure. So yeah, figure we can call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.